Hey, so it's been a while since I made a public video, and honestly, even though I'm not exactly performing for a full stadium arena, I've felt a little bit of stress about making this one because it's been a particularly interesting year for me, which, if you know anything about my life or past lives leading up to this point, is saying something, something that I will not elaborate on. All right. I mean, if I happen to know where fairies have a small village by a mountain stream, I shouldn't run into a tribe of goblins and say, hey, there's a fairy village over there. Because even if most of the goblins are like, meh, fairies aren't real, there might be one goblin shaman who hears and runs off and tells his orc shaman friend who's like, I can make bloodlust potions from the wings of fairies. And then the fairies are in danger because I said something stupid. But if I only told the elves about the fairy village, they might just be like, oh, cool, let's go put on a play for them and we'll trade some wine for tea. And that's in essence why we don't have open disclosure about aliens and God, because public statements are open to all fairy tale and regular creatures equally, and it's very important to try to ensure that people pass wisdom and ethics thresholds before endeavoring to assimilate the nuanced consequences of certain complex spiritual and psychological truths. Pass driver's ed before you drive a car. Anyways, some of the good news is that a lot of the most important foundational and developmental steps that we need to take to manifest a better world more quickly are not immensely intellectually complex, but are more about how to establish and maintain healthy heart connections with one another and to teach others to do the same. The world is prepared for a lot of positive changes and the prosperity of God's people from all of the spiritual and physical work that good people have been putting in. So appreciate one another, have some gratitude for the grind. And, one of the worst things we can do is like paint our eyes black and look for excuses to ignore love and beauty around us. That's self destruction at its finest. But we also don't want to paint our eyes white and ignore insanity or evil. Then you're essentially sacrificing your self preservation. And a lot of people are doing that these days. They paint a sort of mural on the side of a cliff and then they try to walk through it. They try to turn spirituality or their religion into self absorbed subjectivity idolization, resulting in vanity and pleasure seeking, but that's not how it works. It's actually a study of physics, the physics of the consequences of actions and choices and philosophies and desire and intention and energy and communication, and also the study of how to unite our hearts and souls with the tangible power and wisdom of God to protect us and guide us to live good lives and make the earth into 10 million playgrounds and sanctuaries. Also ghosts and stuff. Anyways, we do have some work to do to get there. We aren't going to have to all become saints and engineers and wizards. For the most part, we can get there just by living with sincerity and integrity and godliness towards those around us, which will gradually cleanse their shadows and establish a solid community foundation around us. We don't have to force too much to happen if we simply live virtuously. We'll connect more naturally with one another and opportunities will arise intuitively. But one of the cornerstones that we should all focus on is elevating the intentionality and intelligence of our communication. We need to be more willing and able to ask for or elaborate upon the nuanced definitions of the terminology we are using to form claims or assertions. Words such as love, empathy, mind, heart, intention, brotherhood, health, harm, good, evil, gay pride, Christianity, or capitalism, among many others, should very often be defined by the person using them so as to ensure that we are not using different subconscious connotations to understand one another as opposed to the true intention of the terminology within the particular communication. If we're all a little bit more self-aware about that, then we can really start to avoid a lot of wasteful misunderstandings, both individually and culturally. In essence, the act of refining the accuracy and ethical intentionality of our communication is integral to the process of making our judgments and beliefs about any given topic or situation more accurate and less subconscious and impulsive. Unrefined and bitter judgments are a major cause of harm and stress throughout the world, so seriously considering how to elevate the nuanced accuracy of our understanding in any given situation is just extraordinarily beneficial to the growth of every sentient being and the act of coming to a more mutually beneficial agreement in any given ethical controversy. Symbiosis is the word of the day. But that is a little bit more mind spacey than heart spacey, and like I said, the heart space is a lot more important for a lot of people. It's where we actually build a more relatable sacred web of protection and uplifting. So when developing heart connections with others, it's important to distinguish between empathy and sympathy. And that might be obvious to some, but a lot of people put sympathy towards the wrong people because they actually don't have a very highly developed empathy and often think that they do. Empathy is just an accurate intuition of spirit. A high degree of empathy might recognize when sympathy is completely unwarranted or even dangerous because you see that a man's spirit is psychotic and manipulative and cruel, even if he seems charming. And you might recognize that, linking a heartstring to such a person would be like throwing a rope into hell, and that they're only going to try to use that rope to pull you down. So if you want to test your strength and fortitude and wisdom and influence, you can try to connect your heart to people who are like dangerous and like dragging themselves and others into hell around them. But as a general spiritual strategy, it's wiser to establish a strong uh, series of heart connections with the people around us who are outside of hell in their souls. They're not that far into hell at least, and thereby we can work with people who are appreciative and symbiotic and decent to protect one another from the sorts of destructive philosophies and desires which lead people to destruction. And if you do want to extend heart ropes towards people who are manifesting hell, then you can do it with more strength when you have solid connections around you. Um, and you can pull people out more effectively when your family is safe, your co-workers are more joyous, and your you know church is wiser or whatever. And yeah, and then you'll be able to reach out to your delusional PTSD alcoholic veteran uncle on the streets and be able to have more options to help pull him out of hell. That said, I'm going to go into something a little bit more advanced now. Hopefully, everything I just said drove away everyone who might use more advanced knowledge for nefarious purposes. So, aura shifting. What kind of energy do you absorb or project with your aura? There's three primary aura fields that I want you to consider. First is peaceful. The second is fun and joyous and playful and exciting. And the third is punishing. Now, low-level humans primarily care about fun and excitement and pleasure-seeking and survival if they haven't done too much work to evolve into a higher awareness of purpose and intentionality and awareness and awareness and awareness. So a lot of the world runs on the fun and excitement aura, and if you emanate fun and excitement, you will be able to lure people to you like bugs, and they'll take all the fun and excitement they can off your aura and turn it into their own fun and excitement. Of course, there's a little more nuance to it all than that, but that's a general formula for things. If you show a peaceful aura at people who are seeking excitement, they'll probably think you're boring and leave you alone. But if you throw a peaceful aura at those seeking peace, you'll probably vibe and have a nice conversation. A lot of people mistake the peaceful aura for heaven or nirvana because you can actually make your peaceful aura feel very heavenly. But it's actually just kind of a measure of self-control, a measure of regulating one's reactive impulses. Staying in peace aura when you unlock it can sometimes actually be quite indulgent, slothful, or even harmful. If you're in a situation where you should be in a sort of emergency or punishment aura and able to deal with the real problem effectively, but you're in peace aura, then it's a problem. Um, Controlling and understanding our reactions is a massive key to stress management and actually the cure for a lot of mental illnesses. So getting that first layer of peaceful aura control is important, but it's not like the end goal. Like you have to actually create things after that, and you have options, lots of options. But I'll get into more detail about that some other time. But I would like to encourage you to meditate on the idea of observing and controlling your reactions on your own. So punishment aura requires a little bit of nuance. Because sometimes we really need to use punishment aura and able to show people when they're wrong and also give them wisdom to change their lives, or to just, prevent them from causing harm. Um, if we just need to rawly prevent harm, or if we only care about teaching surrounding people about the ethics of the situation, then we can go full raw punishment aura without caring about like teaching the problematic individual. But if we do care about teaching them, then you really can't just like go full punishment aura on most people unless you have established credibility or authority within their perception, such as if you're the parent of a child or if you're popular or recognized within a certain community. Then people will actually listen to you when you're kind of reprimanding them. Otherwise, a lot of people, if you like reprimand them even in a very valid way, if you have too much like a punishment aura going, they'll just mirror that impulsively. They'll just try to punish you back, um, just subconsciously, even if you're like clearly, objectively, like mathematically correct about the entire situation, and they're just kind of stupid or drunk or something. Um, and a good amount of Earth Angels have probably taken some note of this phenomena, even if they haven't fully grasped it, because our punishment aura can actually just kind of activate automatically, like porcupine quills, when people act evil towards us. And then they'll just get more evil and stupid because they feel their evil bouncing back on them, and they're not really capable of comprehending that they're like a little bit disturbed or stupid. Um, but it's also very difficult sometimes to teach people who are obstinately certain of their destructive path um, from a peaceful or fun aura. They kind of have to get a little bit of a slap in the face to understand the consequences of their unevolved behaviors or intention. So what we need to do and able to teach people like that is we need to kind of learn to stack auras and bind their souls in an orbit to the tangent line of our auras, where they can actually kind of feel us without being like too repelled or too sucked in. For instance, if someone that lives their lives in a sort of childish, pleasure-seeking and drug addiction mentality, you're never really going to be able to. You'll probably never really be able to help them change their ways or like recognize their behavior as destructive, just by kind of like going at them with like wisdom and punishment. Um, you have to pull them somewhat near to you by showing them that you're also like able to connect at a fun and exciting level. But you don't want to get them too close, otherwise they just kind of like feed off the fun and excitement. They don't they might not get the point. You kind of want to pull them to where they're comfortable, but then you have to sneak in subtle bits of wisdom which chisel away or perform surgery on some of the actual spiritual problems that they have. And humor is a great example of this. You make people feel joy by making something funny while also addressing a serious issue. Whereas if you just lecture to address serious issues, a lot of people just are never even going to tune into that. Um, Another good example is music, but you don't have to make music to teach people with music. If you just know a song that's relevant to somebody's current problems and play it for them, it can change their life. It pulls them into that comfort and entertainment zone, but then it has some wisdom in it that actually kind of like knifes into them, and it's just like, oh damn, these people don't like being knifed into surgically, unless they also get some pleasure from it. Unless they have a like high degree of wisdom. If you have a high degree of wisdom, you're like, oh please, perform surgery on me, show me where I'm wrong so that I can get better. And of course, you don't have to use an extraneous tool like humor or music. You can just do it directly with your aura and your voice magic. You just know that with some people, you might only get one shot at making a major impact on them, and if you go slightly too far with the wisdom and good advice and it burns them, they'll just kind of repel magnetically away from you, and they'll send their evil, bitter shadow magic at you. At which point you have every divine right to seal them and curse them and cut them down because they're sinning against you or your people, and you don't deserve that. You have to protect yourself and your people, and they need to learn the consequences of their actions in a harder way. So, yeah, it is a little bit spiritually important to recognize that we can't just forcibly save everybody. We have free will. There are souls who are stalwartly hellbound in their free will, and the best we can do is sort of sever their ties to those that they're trying to drag with them. Which can actually be another form of highly advanced empathy, is sometimes spotting the nuance of people's destructive paths or their vain idolatry and hunger, and such as if there's like a psychotic man who's dragging a naive young woman into his self-absorbed, exciting drug frenzy, we might be able to recognize that we might be the only possible option to prevent her from being destroyed by him in the situation, by planting a few seeds, or informing the local community to kind of keep a lookout on the situation, or perhaps spending some time with them and really pointing out when there's a major ethical problem after you get to know them, depending on the nuances of the social situation. It's all, reality. It's all going to be very nuanced. If it's a really bad situation, you might have to actually physically prevent the psychopath from doing harmful things, or you might have to fully give the woman a whole entire new living situation and able to solve the problem, which is part of why I heavily advocate for ending women's and children's homelessness as a major priority before bothering to try to help men, because they're actually in a lot more danger in general. Anyways, a lot of that intuition grows from just sincerely dedicating our intentions to living in a godly way. And that doesn't mean that we have to strive to be saints or preachers. It just means actively choosing to live with integrity and sincerity. I mean, if 500,000 Christians in America actively said in their minds, I'm going to live the next year with godly integrity and sincerity, America would be a whole different place this time next year. And that's just an example. It doesn't have to be Christians. If you or I actively choose to be intentionally sincere and have purposeful integrity in our actions for the next year, our lives will be more solid, and we may cleanse 100 to 100 million cursed, bitter shadows around us, and make better friends, and solidify their lives. Anyways, I've opened a few doors with this, and hopefully helped to connect a few somewhat valuable dots for you. So I'm going to, anyways, I'm still kind of internally debating how much I can safely talk about some of the nuances of spiritual warfare. For the most part, people who want to stand against evil mostly just need to comprehend that the primary weapons of evil is actively inverting people's sense of virtue and value with Trojan horses. I've said that like 100 times. I have to keep saying it, such as, idolizing, teaching children about gay pride, or telling people that true enlightenment is about being beyond the duality of good and evil. It stunts the growth of children to be forced to think about sexual things. They should be thinking about, their stomach and their heart and their throat and all the other chakras before they have to get layered down into physical obsession. And it's just not the place of strangers to talk to children about that, Those kids are barely thinking about good fart jokes, and you're coming in and trying to teach them to be proud of butt sex. That should be one of the most important topics in their heads. It's like a really, really messed up Trojan horse. And a lot of people fell for it. A lot of people are like, oh, that's so courageous and virtuous that's happening. And this is the total inversion of what virtue means in your head. You lack the nuance of having, I'm not sure how to finish that thought, but there's a lot of nuance to discerning the actual consequences of a lot of these ethical debates, and that's a component of having real virtue, is really discerning the nuance of things, as opposed to just, oh, I found the side. This is the side that sounds good. Oh, the bad side. I hate the bad side. Duh. Everybody freaking does that all the time. Just yeah, we found the bad side. The bad side's over there. We're so smart. Morons everywhere. It's hard for me to be a saint because, God, you people are stupid. Anyways, Where was I in my text? So, there's still a whole buffet of slimy spiritual problems to choose from for anyone who isn't careful out there. Some people have legitimately set up an ice arena for all the teenagers to get sucked into sexual obsessions and drugs, but, we are equipped to guide the youth appropriately so that they can navigate that without getting devoured by it. But, the world's a minefield. That's free will for you. So we have to, help people play Minesweeper by being and creating safe spiritual zones for people to grow and recharge in, while we also strengthen our true virtues, such as discernment, compassion, vigilance, sincerity, integrity, all the kind of obvious things that actually lead to an objectively better reality, either in the spiritual sense or just mechanically. Everything that's spiritual is actually mechanical, by the way. Shh. Yeah. In any case, we can still have a, we still have a, we still have a lot of canceled apocalypse residue to clean up, but most of the problems we're dealing with now are human psychological issues and confusion and self-absorbed assurance of falsehoods. So yeah, a lot of that is really discerning the difference between a probability and a belief, or a probability is a belief is probability, as opposed to a certainty. People really need to be aware of the big difference between belief and truth, and they need to be really become aware of how we react to situations, because when we let our reactions be impulsive, then that leads some people to paranoia. It leads some people to self-destruction, to self-hatred. Like managing your reaction is managing stress, is managing a ton of mental illness. Anyways, the demonic aspect of the Holy War is pretty tightly sealed. So if we continue to steadily learn and grow and contribute to symbiotic communities, the world is going to sort itself, has a very good shot at sorting itself out very beautifully. I mean, I shouldn't speak too definitively about the demonic aspect of things, but that's what I hear, that we are very much dealing more with human problems, humans creating stupid problems for each other, than a lot of the lower level stuff. A lot of the lower level stuff was actually confronted and has been dealt with by real warriors, like the real actual army of God on the earth. There's still always a possibility of a bunch of fake deceptions, throw everybody into a frenzy of chaos, but that's just we're ready for it. We just have to help people deal with themselves. Well, not just, but we mainly have to do that. And how much that's accelerated or hindered is dependent on our free will and wisdom. So like I mentioned at the beginning, effective and intentional communication and empathic awareness, keystones. And yeah, if you have any questions or comments or suggestions, feel free to leave them below. If you know anybody who might be blessed by some of these thoughts, please share the video with them and see what they think. Thanks for tuning in.